Så, eftersom vi har en jätteviktig fotbollsmatch som kommer upp här på fredag till att börja med mellan Portugal och Sverige, så tänkte jag att bloggen kunde ändra lite format. Så vi kör ett litet live-reportage här med naturligtvis ett par portugiser. Kan jag få kameran där? Can you give me the camera please?
Sure.
Thank you very much. So here today I have with me Ros.
Hi there.
And Joao.
Hey.
Hi guys, how are you doing?
All good, you?
Very well, very well.
Perfect. So what are your initial thoughts about the game this Friday?
Well, we're a bit nervous, of course, but we're kind of used to it because the last championships we also went to the playoffs. It's going to be very difficult because I think out of the playoffs we had played before, we didn't get a stronger team as Sweden. All the other ones were kind of weaker. So this time it's going to be very difficult for sure.
So what does that mean? That you're actually scared about Sweden?
Absolutely, yeah.
I think more Ibrahimovic is very scary, but it's one of those teams that makes you feel uncomfortable all the time, and it's not just Ibrahimovic; it's an entire team. You guys have had incredible matches all the way through here. I can only think of that match against England. So it's not just a one man team.
But I mean, that's pretty much how they paint it nowadays, you know. It's Ronaldo against Ibrahimovic.
It's going to be tough. The good thing I can see is that Sweden is not a team to sit back, and we have difficulties playing against teams that sit back. So if Sweden comes and attack us, that I think they will do, of course, with some caution. But Portugal are very good on the counter-attack, and that's when Ronaldo is at his best. So hopefully it can be an open game, and if it's an open game, I think that will favor to the Portugal side.
Okay, so in theory, what would Sweden need to do in order to defeat Portugal?
I think just sit back. Sit back and defend. Let us get frustrated. If you keep us to no goals for the early part of the game, which is very possible and likely, your chances just grow and grow as it goes on. I think Portugal gets frustrated quickly. We have this anxiety of almost being better than we are, and so yeah, I think if you maintain us in the beginning of the game, hold us back. It's going to be tricky. It gets trickier for Portugal as it goes on.
Okay, so what would be, let's play with the thought that Sweden is actually kicking out Portugal, yeah, from this World Cup next year. What would be the immediate effects in Portugal? Would you be even more miserable than you are already?
No, trust me, it would be huge. The misery in Portugal is going to be immense. Especially, there's a few reasons already behind it. Is that it looks like in the early stages we never focus and we never give our best. But when we reach the championships, we play really well and we give it all. And is that the thing that Portugal looks like when they play against smaller teams? They're a bit, this will be easy, and then it's never easy. When we play against bigger teams is when we play at our best. And I think because these are decisive games, I'm pretty sure we'll give it the all of it. But the big thing is also being the World Cup in Brazil. And because of Portugal having the connection with Brazil, and a lot of Portuguese people living out there, and a lot of Portuguese fans will love to go to Brazil and watch the World Cup there. If we don't make it, it will be really, we will destroy the country. I'm pretty sure of it.
Mm-hmm. So Joao, we had an interesting conversation the other day with regards to Bento.
Yeah, so I mean, if we were to not qualify, I almost feel that it would probably be a good thing for Portugal to keep Bento. And it would be a good wake-up call, I think, for the players, because we don't play well as a unit, we don't play well as a team. I think, I mean, there's probably lots of interpretations, but possibly I think there's maybe too many egos on the team.
There's not one in particular? There's a few?
Yes, there's a few, but there's one in particular, but I think he may have, his ego is well placed. He is that good. But I think for a lot of the team, it would be a good wake-up call, and like Ross was saying, to actually give it all and give it their maximum against those difficult teams, which seems to be where we have the shortfall and the shortcoming. So I like Bento. I think technically he can make a good team, and it's more, I think, on the players at this stage to really react to it.
I mean, in the long term, obviously, as Ross was saying, it would be a disaster for Portugal not to qualify. But possibly for the long term of Portuguese football, it could have a good thing. I think keeping Bento, even if we didn't qualify, would be an interesting decision.
And for example, picking up on João was saying about the egos, I follow what he's saying, because there's a lot of egos when they shouldn't be. Because looking at the squad, the team, I would only count the 3 world-class players we have, and that's Pepe, João Moutinho, and Ronaldo.
What about Coentrão?
Coentrão is, but I think lately has a lot of injuries. But for me, that would be the 4th world-class player in my eyes. Those 4. The other ones are not. So we need to play as a team. And a lot of players that start think they're stars, but they're not playing at the level. Nani has great potential, but he has potential. He has skill, but in big games he loses out. Doesn't appear in the game as often as we would like to see. And picking up also on the wake-up call would be, maybe we have really good young players now coming through the Portuguese teams. It could be a time to maybe have a bit, because there's some players that are close to 30, early 30s.
Already did kind of,
Yeah, and we've called up. There's some new guys coming in, some young guys, but I think there's still some more because Benfica and Sporting Lisbon have some good young players that I think some were already called up for the game against Sweden. So I don't think they'll start, but you never know. And maybe that could be also a wake-up call to the guys that are already in the team, and knowing that these youngsters are coming through, so maybe they need to give more than what we expect for them to give.
In Portugal, what's the perception? Is this national team, is it a very loved national team? Because I know, for example, the Spaniards will be one example, and the Italians another, which when they won in the 90s, they didn't really fancy that national team, so a lot of them didn't really give a shit whether or not if they won. Of course they were happy in the end, but that's a discussion which in Sweden is very unlikely to happen, because it doesn't really insist. Take myself as an example. I do not really fancy this Swedish national team, which is kind of cursing in the church. You cannot say that really, because people would have a hard time to understand that. They would understand it in Spain, they would understand it in Italy. What about Portugal?
Well, the nation is always behind the team. There's a lot of pride and honor wherever Portugal go. Maybe because we are maybe a smaller country compared to Sweden, we are similar, but compared to like the Spain and Italy's and Brazil's, you're saying we're a small country. So we always give it all, and we always back up our players when we go to the World Cup. One good thing we have Ronaldo, so we will always be like, just all of Portugal will be behind him, and for him to do great, because we really think he deserves to win something for the national team, and that would be the best for him. If it's more like maybe at the time when we had Luis Figo, Rui Costa, that time maybe it was a more likable team.
Yeah, I think in terms of football, we're just you compare it to when Rui Costa and Figo were there in the '96 Euro, and which we played brilliant football, and even in our own Euro Cup, which I don't want to talk about the final, but we played really nice football. It was sexy football. We played as a team. I think that game against England that we were losing 2-0, we showed our patriotism coming back 3-2, and I remember, I think João Pinto's goal, we had something like 30 or so passes before we actually scored, and it was just a well-oiled machine, quick on the counter-attack. We never really had that striker, but wow, we played really well in the midfield, and you don't feel that with this team. You feel that you have this extremely spectacular player, but then it's sort of disjointed within the different positions, and so as a team, I think what we've seen since Scolari is a lot more passion and drive for the team, but the actual quality of the football hasn't been there since before Scolari.
And I think what we miss a lot. We had Rui Costa, and then we had Deco, and then the number 10, and we haven't had any number 10 since that. So the playmaking of the team is a bit weak. We have good midfielders, so we say maybe number 8, so box-to-box midfielders, but we don't have a playmaker since Ricosta and Deco, and I think we don't create enough chances because of that lack of a number 10. So in that way, that's a good thing for Sweden, but not good for Portugal.
Perhaps the most used and silly question of them all. Would a Portuguese qualification, would that really make a difference in the country in terms of pushing it in the right direction?
You mean economically?
I mean economically that would be no.
It would distract everyone from the crisis for a month.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
that would be great to start with, yeah.
No, but I think. What was the question again?
I don't know. I mean, that's something I just made up. But hey, if a potential qualification to the World Cup would have an impact in the overall general people perception.
If you look at the last Euro Cup, I think we were the only team that really gave Spain a challenge. And when we're in the actual cups, maybe the quality isn't all there, but the heart is there, and we have intense matches. I mean, look at against Holland in the last World Cup, which was 8. We were down to 8 players each team by the end of it, and just so once we're in, there's always that possibility that maybe we can do it. Of course, we're a small country and we're realistic to our limitations. But there's no question that once we're in, there's a lot of heart in there, and we can, on any given day, we can beat any team out there.
And I couldn't think that I would need to wait another 4 years to go to a World Cup. 4 years is a lot of time. So missing out in a World Cup for me is a big loss. I can't wait 4 years until the next World Cup, especially Portugal. For example, in Sweden or around the world, what would you know about Portugal, small country? You'll know it mainly, a lot of people will know Portugal about the football. There's no other sports that we are as good as football. So it's like other countries have other sports that you can follow. In Portugal, we follow football. That's our main sport. 90% of the people in Portugal is football. All of Portugal is football. So missing out I think it's huge. Would be very big for the.
I mean, it's huge, but it's also huge for, if you look at Sweden, for example, football is the main sport in Sweden. I mean, we have other sports as well, like ice hockey, handball, and stuff like that. But football is the sport, Anyhow, I mean, it's Sweden. I would say that Sweden wouldn't see itself as a nation of great football as such. Of course, we had tremendous success in the World Cup '58 and in '94 in the USA as well. But still, it's not that we identify ourselves with football in the same way as you guys do.
Yeah, I think so.
You have the winter sports, right?
Yeah, which is kind of cool, but not many people follow it, really. So, anyhow, thank you very much. Is there anything else that we should kind of round this thing off with?
It'd just be a real shame. I think it's a real shame to have 2 superstars like Ronaldo and Ibrahimovic. I think both in their prime, and one of them will have to miss the World Cup. And so I know that this is going into the commercial and whatnot, but there's a reason why they're superstars, and there's a reason why people follow them. And so I think it would have been great if both teams could go.
But that's
a real shame.
Yeah, it is. I mean, but you should have thought about that before starting to playing like shit.
Yeah, for sure.
Who did you have in your group?
We had Russia. We should have.
We were convinced. I was convinced we would have gone through in first place when I saw the group. I thought Russia would only be our only challenge, and so it's Northern Ireland.
We drew at home against Northern Ireland. We drew at home against Israel.
And away 3-3, and we drew in the last minutes. We were losing 3-1 in the last 5 minutes of the match.
And then we drew 3-3, so
we're lucky to be here.
to be in second place and to the playoffs. But as I said before, we've been there for the last two playoffs, and we went through. But it's not the same. Sweden is going to be a way more difficult opponent than what we were.
And the first match at home.
First match at home. What's really important for me is not concede any goals. If we can go with a 2-0, victory to Sweden, then I think we have a very good chance, of course. But if Sweden score in Lisbon and 2-1, 1-1, it's going to be very... Yes, I think they're going to be two games, very tight games, for sure.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much. And on a finishing note, anyone ever told you that Benfica kind of sucks?
I think so. No. Benfica is the best team in the world.
It is, right. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much. Och då tackar vi Ross och Joao för den här lilla intervjun som vi har på eftermiddagen i Madrid. Vi säger så, ha det bra.